everyone, we hope all of you are doing fine and welcome to our third JEE alumni success story. As usual, we will start with a brief introduction to the ones who don't know us yet. I'm Margarida Bento, current alumni manager of JEUR Enterprises Europe, and I'm working remotely from Portugal. Unfortunately, Elizabeth Wigan, the current Secretary General of JEUR Enterprises Europe for the term 2019-2020, cannot be here today for personal reasons. However, I will share some words that she would like to share with you. This organization was formerly known as JEE, Junior Association for Development in Europe, and founded by 6 countries in 1992, aiming to foster entrepreneurship among students since 1967. Elizabeth, with 3 other members of JEE Executive Board, took a gap year in their studies to live and work together full-time to co-represent, integrate, and support a network of 30,000 students in 14 European countries. If you don't know yet the JEE concept, a junior enterprises is a non-profit organization formed and managed exclusively by students of higher education, which provides services for companies, institutions, and individuals. They are similar to real companies with the main goal of enhancing the learning of their members through practical experiences. At European NGO, our mission is to boost the development of the Junior Enterprises Network, empowering students capable and committed to generate a relevant impact at 3 levels: in academia, the business world, and in society. One of the goals from our network strategy is to enhance the junior entrepreneur experience, so we can increase our visibility towards the market, acquiring more project opportunities. This is one of the reasons why we decided to launch the success story some years ago. These alumni are former junior entrepreneurs and they can easily relate the experience we are going through in academic world. Also, they inspire us thanks to their meaningful results and advice to bridge us even closer to the business world. We are glad to welcome all of you here today in this live session to hear more about our alumni success stories. This is a new format we are trying to implement this year to make it more interactive, and we hope all of you enjoy it. Our third alumni invited to our success story interview is Benjamin. So welcome, Benjamin. Thank you for accepting participating in this interview, and let me tell you that it's a pleasure for me and for all of us to have you here today.
Hello everyone.
Benjamin, I'm going to introduce Benjamin, okay? Benjamin is a JEE alumni. He started his JEE experience in 2009 while becoming a member of Marketing Mediterranean in Marseille, where he spent 2 years as project manager and then as international manager. He then joined to the French National Confederation, JEE France, as international manager before he finished his JEE experience by joining JEE as quality project manager. He studied controlling, consultancy, corporate strategy and general management, and also a dual degree with a German university. Currently, he is consultant manager in a large audit and consulting firm in Paris. He joined the firm 7 years ago and participated in several consulting projects, including dashboarding optimization, finance function transformation, strategy alignment, and IT spending optimization. He specializes in enterprise performance management and usually works with finance, IT, human resources, and marketing professionals, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Thanks for the introduction.
Okay, I'm going to remind you about the structure of the session. This session is divided in 3 main parts: interview, tips and tricks, and Q&A session. In the first part, we are going to discuss about his experience in the network, current position, and future perspectives. Then the tips and tricks part is divided in three parts: becoming a consultant, advice for junior entrepreneurs, and a good alumni. And the final part is where the participants can ask questions directly to Benjamin. Okay? Okay, let's start. The first part, your experience in the network. Okay, what motivated you to embrace this experience of being a junior entrepreneur?
Yes, I think that the thing that motivated me the most is I felt that something was going wrong. I felt that I was closer and closer going to go to the professional world. And I was quite sure that with my courses, it was not enough. And I wanted to fill the gap between this very theoretical and my scholar somehow path and the professional world. And so for me, it was important to find a solution to fill this gap. And so I went on the internet and I tried to find options or solutions that could help me somehow to prepare myself to go to the professional world. And I found the concept of junior enterprise. And for me, it became obvious that this was a good opportunity for me to fill the gap, to work with a team, to meet clients, and to start, I would say, to have professional relations. So that was the first motivation. And then I would say with the time, the human experience was very important also in terms of motivation, working with friends and trying to find solutions for customers. That was really, really great.
You think that your experience as junior entrepreneur influenced you in choosing your career path?
Yes, I do. In fact, so just after the baccalaureate and what we call the preparatory class, it's 2 years in France, I had to select my career path somehow, and I wanted to join a business school. And when entering to business school, I have no idea about what to do. I would say I look at all the courses, so HR, finance, marketing, communication, controlling, finance, but that was only somehow technical terms, but nothing behind was really clear to me. And I started somehow to, I would say, select the one that would, I would say, apply to me or in which I will be the most comfortable with. And in fact, uh, as I can explain, yeah, I was thinking that I will select a career like in marketing, for instance, without knowing anything about it. And time after time, and with the JEE experience, I would say, understand that a career in consulting was something that was really suitable to me because of a lot of elements that we will probably discuss right after. But yeah, I think that the JEE experience, I would say, helped me to select the right career path because of this experience. Yeah.
Um, I believe that all junior entrepreneurs face some challenges during their journey as junior entrepreneurs. What are the challenges you face?
Oh yes, we do. We do a lot. The first challenge that we face actually, I think, is that we need to, I would say, interact with the professional world without being professionals ourselves. So basically, one of the first challenge for us is to understand what we are doing and what our customers are expecting from us. So this is very important for us, I would say, to understand and to work in a situation that will allow us to, I would say, interact and discuss with people. The other element, which was really complicated also, is the time, because this requires a lot of time and to manage your courses in parallel with your JEE experience. So that's also very difficult. And the third challenge, which is quite complicated also to manage, especially when you are young, is I would say the interpersonal challenge, meaning that you need to manage people, you need to motivate people, and the HR aspects are very important and very difficult because people in the team have not the same expectations or are looking for other, I would say, elements. And that's also something difficult to align people and to get together. But that's a challenge that are also, I would say, that you will meet in the future as well. So that's interesting to meet them right now in your JEE experience so that you will be more prepared for the future. Yeah.
So you refer some aspects as managing time and managing people, and it's a little bit related with this question that I have here for you. Can you sum up like the main skills that you gain thanks to your experience as junior entrepreneur?
Yeah, exactly. And one of the first one, and probably the most important one for your entire career, no matter what you are doing in the future, this is probably flexibility or adaptability. Because precisely as you don't know exactly what to do or how to do, because you are still not a professional, because you just start somehow to enter to the professional world, you need to adapt yourself all the time. And that's a skill which is very important also when you, I would say, when you gain more experience or when you are working since 5, 10, or 20 years, because precisely you need also to evolve because the world is moving, because people and the technology is evolving. So basically, you need also to adapt yourself. And that's a really important aspect. So the first skill definitely is adaptability and flexibility. That's fundamental for the JEE experience. The second one, I would say a skill which is also important is to be open-minded to new technologies, to innovation, to the people, to way of working. So that's also very important because when you have to find solutions, when you have to build, I would say, good relations with people, when you have to build good environments of working for yourself, your company, but also other companies like a consultant, is something very important. And I think that the enterprise experience helps you also to learn a lot about people, motivation, and the way they can move and change and evaluate. So that third one probably will be more related to, I would say, technical aspects. So the technical knowledge or know-how. So basically, you start with your junior enterprise experience because you are in contact with customer. You start to understand what precisely marketing, finance, or HR means, and so you start gaining more and more, I would say, knowledge about technical aspects. So this is a skill which is very important and that you start gaining before the others. Naturally, it is always in comparison with people who did not follow the junior entrepreneur track. You see, especially when you start during your first or second year of your job, you see that there is a high difference between a non-junior entrepreneur and a junior entrepreneur on this aspect. You are more comfortable, more flexible, and you are, I would say, more aware of people aspects.
And do you think that it influenced your confidence, like being junior entrepreneur, for example, in business world?
Yes, I do, especially since, in my case, there is I would say, there are a lot of equivalence between what I experienced when I started my job and the JEE, I would say, experience. Since becoming a consultant, naturally, this is somehow interlinked with the JEE experience. It's especially true when, for instance, I will give you an example, when you need to, I would say, when you start your career, your manager comes to you and say, well, we have a call for proposal for a customer and we need to reply, so we need to prepare a slide pack to answer to this call for proposal. So can you help me to do the CVs and the past experience slides? And okay, but I can do more. I know how also to do the context slides. I know how to explain the methodology and so on and so forth. So that's very important. And people, when they see that you just arrived in the company, but you already know how to, I would say, prepare a proposal for the clients, they are quite surprised. So that's for technical aspect. And just also one short story about that, something which can appear to be very, I would say, few, but very fundamental as well. When I started the first day of my job, they told me, yeah, you need to use the printer. And actually, the printer of the company was the same that the one I had in my junior enterprise. And so rapidly, I did not have any problem to use the printer. And they were just, I would say, surprised that I already managed the printer, because usually they need to explain. So this is just small things like this, one after one, that makes you feeling more comfortable, and that makes you starting, I would say, with an easier situation than most of your counterpart now.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, here I have the final question related with your experience in the network. This is a more emotional question. What is the best memory from you, from your junior entrepreneur experience?
That's great to have an emotional question, because there are a lot of emotions when you're junior entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that's right.
So I have a lot in mind, but perhaps one short story, one more, even if I have a lot to tell. But one that was very important for me is, so just to give you an idea, I am a former French entrepreneur. So basically, every year the French Confederation is organizing a national event, so large event with hundreds and hundreds of junior entrepreneurs. And this year, so for my second year, the event was organized on an island in the south of France. An entire island was prepared for the events. And since we were located in Marseille, and we have a long tradition, every year we come with a different transportation means. So the year before, for instance, was an American truck. Sometimes it's with helicopter and so on and so forth. And this year we decided to hire a large boat, like a pirate's boat with a crew. So we had a 3 guys team that were navigated. And we just started from Marseille, and we spent the whole day on the Mediterranean Sea with dolphins and so on and so forth. And we just arrived just before the night in the island in front of all the original entrepreneurs. And that was a really important, I would say, team moment, team building moments, because we spent the whole day on the boat with the sun, and that was crazy. Yeah, you can experience with your team and your colleagues when you are working, and then you arrive and you see all the other entrepreneurs, and you start a crazy weekend with all of them, with training and with a lot of events. So that's a very good.
Thank you for your reply. Sorry, sometimes my connection is a little bit down. Can you hear me, Benjamin?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Let's continue. Here in this part, we are going to move to the next part of the interview. Is related with your current position. Okay, so the first question that I have for you is, what drives you the most in your work?
Yes. Like a lot of consultants, I think, so I will not be the only one, but I think that it's important, at least to me, it's diversity. So it means that when I start a day, I don't know exactly what is going to happen. And this is something that is really exciting, intellectually speaking, physically speaking, and I would say there is a sense of discovery, which is really important in my job, and that's something that drives me a lot, or at least the most, to answer to your question, because this is an opportunity for me to start a day, to meet people. I don't know what is going to happen, and that's something that I really like, because there is no routine somehow, or at least very, very few elements that can be called routine, and for the rest, this is only somehow opportunities and organization and people to meet. So that's very important for me to have a rich experience on that.
So basically, imagine if you have 2 options. Every day you would have to do something completely different every day, or repeat the same thing for the rest of your life. You would prefer the first option, right?
Yeah, exactly, the first option. So at least to me, I like also being challenging, and I know that this situation has also drawbacks because it's also, I would say, in terms of concentration, of time, and of, I mean, it's quite, I would say, it's a career path which requires you to be motivated, to be invested a lot, and so on. So in terms of professional, it takes a lot of, I would say, of your time in your life. So this is something also that you need to manage with your personal, I would say, expectations. But yeah, for the moment, at least, at this period of time, since I'm quite young, I like to continue to discover the world and to have a lot of different tasks to do days after days. That's important for me.
Yeah. It was what I was expecting, considering your first explanation. The next question that I have for you is if you ever been able to change some processes for other companies with some that you learn in the network, in the JEE network.
Yes. Just to introduce the answer to this question, one thing which is important to know is that a large part of my job consists into changing or transforming organization, processes, IT landscape, and to make people work differently to, I would say, meet the objectives that have been set by. There are, I would say, a lot of conditions, and one of them is naturally to, I would say, to understand or to know how people are working, why they are working this way, and how you can change in an intelligent way the way they're performing so that they can perform in a different manners right after your intervention. And one thing which was really interesting with the JEE experience is that with the audit and quality aspects of a JEE enterprise, you learn how to divide the process, how to organize your structure and your organization. And so there are some basic elements that come in your mind quite rapidly. And so at the really beginning of my professional experience, it helped me a lot to, I would say, ask the right questions to my customer and to say, why are you process like this, and how we can improve it in the future with the customer approval, which is really important in terms of change management. We need naturally to support the customer itself. It's not just me which is saying it's bad, it's good. It's not an audit as such. It's, I would say, a process which is going forward with a diagnosis and then and then the implementation.
Benjamin, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Magda.
Yeah. Thank you for your reply. It was really interesting, the perspective that you showed us. The next question that I have for you is related with mistakes. All of us sometimes make mistakes. So, what were the mistakes that you learned from in your career?
Yes. So the list is longer, so I will try to summarize to the top 3 or top 4 mistakes. But yeah, perhaps one of the first mistakes that I made is that I was quite sure, because I was young, that upcoming years. And I was like, okay, I will do this, I will do my business school and will be graduated, and then I will do that, and so on and so forth. And with the time, you are like, okay, but perhaps I want something different, or I would say external elements will change also my vision or the way I planned initially my career path. And that's something which is very important, because when you are young, you are just, I would say, okay, let's do like this. This is the way I should do. And actually, you see that life, well, for a lot of different reasons, will tell you finally this job is not for you. And finally, you apply for this consulting firm, and that's this one that will welcome you and that you will spend a lot of time. So there are a lot of options. So I think that the first mistake is to believe that you can control anything and that your career path will be, I would say, a line, and that you already plan everything and that everything is going to be the right thing. So be prepared to be surprised. You don't expect necessarily to go in this position or in this job or in this company, but that's not a problem at the end, because you will probably have an amazing experience, even if it was not what you planned initially. So that's, I would say, a huge mistake. And a second one, which is also important, is that the human aspect counts a lot more than you can imagine. And this is difficult because you have already, I think that you have already heard about that HR aspects are very important. And I think that until you don't experience it concretely with people in front of you, you cannot really understand what does it mean. And so that's why I really encourage you to, I would say, pursue in your junior enterprise experience, and to pursue in your internships also to experience what does HR and human relations means, because this is a part of your job, no matter if you are, I would say, in finance, in HR, in communication, in marketing, you will have to interact with people for most of you. Even if you want to become entrepreneurs, you will have to, I would say, exchange with a lot of stakeholders, with suppliers, with customers. So this is very important for you also to exchange with people, to get to know them, and to understand what are the expectations, so that you can also interact and bring them some value. So that's also an important thing. So you should not underestimate, I would say, the people aspect. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is something really important to start developing when you are, for example, a junior entrepreneur. Like, the human relations are really strong, right? And
Yeah,
really
exactly. And yeah, exactly. And this is complicated because it also requires you to understand what are the right communication levels. How do you communicate with people? Should I send an email or should I call him? And well, that's something which is very, I would say, depending on also the country specificities. There are some countries where the communication are really different from one to another. But you also have, I would say, human, I would say, knowledge to gain. And the only way to gain this knowledge is to be in contact with people and to make mistakes and to understand that that was not what they meant, or that was not what they expected from you, but you think so. And you need to correct yourself. And with the experience, you will see that this is an important aspect, and you will be, I would say, more and more valuable. You will bring more value to the customers right after this experience. Yeah, that's important.
The next question is related with opinion of mine. For example, I believe that a lot of junior entrepreneurs aim to become a consultant. So I think it will be interesting for us and for us to know, how would you describe a tough work day in comparison with one easy day as a consultant?
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the first remarks that I will have for this question is that, as you can imagine, the day of a consultant is really different, I would say, one day compared to another. So one thing which is very important, and we already discussed about that, it's every day there is something new. So the good thing is that in terms of challenge, in terms of, I would say, routine and habits, you are not deceived. That's always a new experience. That's something which is, I would say, really important. And especially when you are in a situation when you start your career, you want to discover a lot of things. And that the somehow of this, I would say, a situation is that sometimes you have a tough work day. I would say that the tough work days correspond to the one that I would say there is a succession of problems that you thought were solved and actually not. And sometimes you are like, because when the world, when your environment is constantly evolving, small win. So you need to, I would say, understand with your customers that, yeah, we make a progress. Okay, we did not reach the ultimate objectives, but still we are moving, we are progressing. So we need to have sometimes something to somehow, I would say, we need to be comfortable with. Because as any human, there is a moment where you need to find a solution which is more stable, as we are looking for more stability. And when you start with your customer and you say, well, this is the first progress we made, let's go to the next step. And finally you say, no, the first step is not stable enough, so we need to rework. So that's sometimes a tough work day. And sometimes for bad reasons, when you have political, I would say, reasons inside the company, or when you have just an IT problems that make your process completely out, well, that's not the perfect work day. And perhaps another example, which is also very important, is when you have too much meetings. A tough work day when you start with a meeting at, I don't know, 8 a.m. and when you finish at 7 p.m. and you didn't make anything in between, just meetings, seats, and just listening to people. That's not my preferred days, actually. Yeah. I really appreciate also. And if we need to make a comparison with an easy one, an easy day somehow, or a good day is a day when you don't know exactly what you are going to do, but you say that you know in advance that you have one or two meeting slides or implement the solution that you are somehow encourage or propose to the clients, and that things are working, and that's the clients say, okay, thank you very much, that helped us a lot in making progress and reducing the number of tasks which are not really correct or erase problems. Yeah, there are a lot of problems and we need to find solution, and that's cool because the co-construction, so we construct the solution with our clients. So that's not me in an office that think of cool things. That's definitely not, I mean, I'm not a scientist, but I will bring solutions. I know how things are going in other companies because I am specialized and so on. And so we mix all these things and we see if it can work or not, if it can fit to the expectations, and then we implement. So that's a good, I would say, a good work day.
I think it was really clear, your explanation. The next question is related with something that I believe that junior entrepreneurs are really curious about. How was your interview when you were applying to a consultancy company? Can you share some advice for someone thinking about applying?
Yes. So that's a good question and a really difficult one because there are no, I would say, to succeed. The first thing that you have to know or to have in mind is that depending on the consulting company, the interviews will be very different. They are not looking for the same, I would say, skills. They are not looking for the same profiles. So this is really difficult, I would say, to have a general speech on that. One thing which is really important, if we already start to the advice, and then I will come back to perhaps my personal case, but perhaps more on the advice or the projection. Something which is really important for you to be well prepared is to get in contact with the company. So perhaps to contact people directly. I have sometimes some people I'm always surprised, but that's a good thing actually. People that I actually don't know at all, that come from different universities or business schools that contact me to just, would say, ask myself how things are going in my company, what is your job, and what are you doing, because they need to feel somehow what is the working environment. So that's a really good thing, because you need also to understand that applying to a company it also means that you want to enter to a professional world with very specific rules and routines and organization. And so, depending on the consulting firms, depending on the culture of the firm, you will have to adapt more or less somehow your speech or your interview to better fit to their expectations. So that's the first thing which is really important. Then, to answer concretely to your question, one thing which is really important is that, for instance, in my case, I had 3 interviews consecutively. The first one is generally dedicated to the fit, what we call a fit interview. So the basic question is, do I see this guy who is in front of me? Do I see him working with me in a team? And am I sure that I can bring him in face of a customer? And so that's it. So that's a very, I would say, basic question, but a very important one in terms of communication, in terms of, I would say, physical presentation, in terms of speech and language. Do I consider that this person can work with me first? So he's a team player, and then will be, I would say, strong enough to exchange or discuss with a customer who can sometimes be a chief financial officer or a CEO sometimes. So that's the first point. The second interviews was a business case. So basically, this is the fundamental selection process with the famous business case. So naturally, this is just, I would say, aiming at making some tests in terms of mathematical logic. So are you capable to think and to analyze? Naturally, the answers do not matter. Actually, we don't really, I would say, we don't really see, or we are not really interested to know if you are perfectly right. But what is important for us is that the explanations that you give us to justify or to, I would say, contextualize your answer is the right one. So that's very important. So don't be afraid. Sometimes the questions in the business case are crazy, but we just want to know, or we just want to see how you will react, how you will, I would say, take this complexity and what you will do to manage it. And so that's part of our job. We had there is a company which had a sentence that was interesting. They say, our job is to cut through complexity. And that's an interesting job. And I think that it applies, by the way, for most of the careers. There is complexity, and you need to cut through and to find solutions in this environment. And for your information, the last interview is usually with a partner of the company. So I would say a high representative of the company, and this is more also to see that everything is going right, that your presentation skills are still complete, and if you are able, I would say, to be a future good professional and a good representative of the company. So, as you have understood, this is something which is really important, is that there are a lot of interpersonal aspects that you have to take into account, and that's why this is so difficult to know if you succeed or not in your interviews, because, I mean, what the people are looking for are not necessarily the things that you think they are looking for. They are not looking for robots or people who know a lot of things, because they know by definition, especially when you are young, that your knowledge is quite limited, but they want to see something different that they didn't see in the others. Because this is probably, if we continue into the advice, this is something which is very important. There are a lot of applications. We see a lot of people every day, every week, every month. So naturally, when you make the difference, you have more chance than the others to be selected. That's an important thing. And one element to continue to answer to your question, perhaps one element that allow me to make a difference is precisely my JEE experience, because when you discuss or when you talk with a consultant about your JEE experience, so first, it does not really understand how it's possible. So there is a problem to explain how, when you are just 20 years old or 22, how are you able to make so much project, to be in contact with clients, and to have already managed projects. So they are quite surprised. But then when they discuss with you after 10 or 15 minutes, they understand, because you make some precisions or you explain it with passion. So they understand that it's true and that you are passionate guys and that they definitely need to hire you. So that's very important also to put in front of you your JEE experience or any kind of sport experience or cultural or artistic experience, to show that you are motivated and you can, I would say, bring a lot to the company as well.
Benjamin, one question. I know that you live in France. You don't think that French companies are aware of JEE concept?
Well, some of them are. That's true, especially the one which are in partnership with the French Confederation. So they know the JEE concept. But the thing is, the HR department knows, but most of the recruitment interviews are made by professionals who do not belong to the HR department, actually, by the consultant themselves. So if the consultant didn't know about the JEE concept, this was, I would say, sometimes more complicated, so you had to explain. But yeah, for sure, you have more chance to meet someone who either has been junior entrepreneur, and that's top for you, that's perfect, or at least you need to, I would say, explain and develop what you did in the past, and that helps you also. Yeah, but the thing is that, yeah, it's not always the HR people that makes the interview, so they don't necessarily know the JEE concept as well as the HR guys.
Yeah, but I thought that in France the companies were more aware of it. But yeah, I understand. I think it was really clear your explanation related with this question, and it will help for sure all the junior entrepreneurs that are attending to this session. Thank you so much. Right now we are going to our final part. Is related with future perspectives. It's always a little bit difficult to talk about future, but let's try, right? Okay. So the first question that I have here for you is, what are you planning to do in the next few years?
Yes, so I think that you have understood that the career path is not a line which is perfectly, I would say, planned, but still, I think that, well, if I speak about my personal experience, I would say a midterm or short or midterm perspective, I would say 4 or 5 years. I plan to, I would say, continue to pursue my consulting career because I really enjoy my job. I really like working with people who are just, I would say, for me at least, brilliant. They are passionate. They work a lot. We have very interesting discussions about how to improve the process, how to improve organization. So I really like, intellectually speaking, discussing with people who are really, I would say, involved in their job. So I'm really motivated, at least in a midterm perspective, to continue. And then I have to admit that after that, and because also with the time you continue to somehow take more and more responsibilities, and your job is changing, because when I was a junior consultant, I didn't do the same thing that when I was a senior consultant. I don't do the same now that I'm manager, and I will not do the same in 1 or 2 years. So basically, that's also something which is really difficult, because you need to change your job. Actually, you change your job, but you stay in the same company. And at the same time, it's something that I really appreciate, because I have also the impression to change my job. And so this is also new challenge and new opportunities. I'm working more and more on HR project or commercial development aspect. So this is something which is really important to me. And that's a super experience. So next few years, definitely, I think that the consulting career will continue to, I would say passionate me. After that, I need to think, because I think that there are also personal, familial, and family and personal aspect that will have to be taken into account, and that can make me derive. So I need to think about it in few years. So we can take a rendezvous in 5 years to discuss this point. Yeah.
I have other questions for you. You think it's a little bit difficult for you to balance your career with your familiar aspects?
Yeah. Because, so at least to me, it's difficult because, as I explained, the consulting career is, I would say, so for me at least, as I love what I'm doing, I spend a lot of time. And naturally, when you spend a lot of time working, naturally, I would say you invest less in other activities with family, friends, and all the construction. So naturally, when you start your career, you are not necessarily in this mood, because I would say you are not, I would say, old enough to take this into consideration. It's not all people. I'm not saying that all people are in this situation, but at least to my situation, when I was young, I was just focused somehow on my professional career, because this was important for me to be, I would say, in a job, or to take a position that will make me happy. I mean, every morning when I wake up, I'm happy to go to job, and that's important for me. And then I was thinking that, and then I will construct the rest of my life. And well, but that's difficult, because you have a lot of injunction. You need to have a lot of time, because you need to dedicate time also to other people. And so that's something that you definitely need to take into account, and that will make your career path very specific. And that's important for you, at least at every moment of your life, to be, I would say, aligned with what is important for you. And I'm not really sure that what is important for me today will be also important for me tomorrow. So that's why I'm thinking that probably in the future, I will have more, I would say, probably other objectives, personal objectives, that will perhaps have an impact on my professional objectives. Yeah. But let's do. I mean, that's life. That's also the good part of life. Yeah, this is not just a straight line. We need to adapt, and that's a good thing also. Yeah.
Did you think that your JEE experience make you reevaluate what you want to do in the future?
Well, I won't say perhaps re-evaluate, because this is perhaps a little bit tough. But still, the JEE experience gives me, I would say, something which is very important for me, at least. It opens me some, I would say, doors or options or scenarios that I won't have in mind before. Especially, I would say, I am not, I would say, naturally an entrepreneur as such, but I have to say that with the experience, I've been in contact with the entrepreneurship world, and I liked it. And yes, so in this sense, becoming an entrepreneur could be something that I was completely not thinking about previously. And with the experience, this is something that, well, I can. So I didn't say that I will, but yeah, I can open this option at least, because I really liked to be in contact with this entrepreneurship world. So that's something which is also important. When you are junior entrepreneurs, you need to get in contact with as much people as possible from different worlds, different perspectives, so that, especially when you don't really know what to do in your future career or what you plan to do, this is really important for you. I mean, to get in contact, to exchange, to discuss how does it look like, what do you like, what is the good thing in your job, and what motivated you. And basically, I would say days after days, we'll understand what I want to do and what I don't want to do. And I think that, like a lot of people, you know first what you don't want to do, and then you will see what's important, because the landscape is really important. And just have fun. Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, it is also important to have fun, right?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you plan to give back to the JEE network?
Yeah. So this is so as you have understood probably with the presentation, I spent almost 4 years in the JEE network. So this is a network that I would say really appreciate. As a former member, as an alumni, and I'm precisely alumni of 3 organizations, one JEU Enterprise, one National Confederation, plus the European Confederation. So I have the chance to stay in contact with people who are operating in these organizations. And so I think that the way I can give back to the JEE network is to be in contact with people, to stay in contact. So naturally, when I receive a call or when I receive some emails to help when they ask me to help them on some technical support for projects in terms of change management, in terms of process organization, I'm really happy if I have time to reply and to help people. So that's really cool because it makes good bridges between what I can experience, and that's part of my job. And so as I like to do these kind of things, I'm more than welcome to help young people who are motivated to also launch interesting projects. And so this is the way I'm operating right now, and I plan to give back to the JEE network like this, yeah, to stay in contact and answer to the and add to some project which can be very important for the development of the network in the future.
Thank you for your reply. It is really nice to see that our alumni wants to help us and to help junior entrepreneurs. I really appreciate that, and I think all of us appreciate it, right? Okay, the next question. I think that you already we already discussed about it. So
Yes.
if you don't mind, we will go to the next part. Okay, this part here, I would like we already finished the part of the interview. In this part, I would like to ask you to share some tips and some tricks related with personal and professional advices for junior entrepreneurs.
Okay. Yes, some tips and some tricks. So the first one, perhaps, if I won't make you a slide, but even if I'm a consultant, I would like to prepare a slide for you. But no, let's be really concrete. Perhaps the first thing you have to have in mind is that you are probably I don't know where you are exactly in your educational path, but one thing which is really important is that you have to take the opportunity of this moment. So to be in business schools, in university, in engineering schools, or in other education, or in other part of the education system, to, I would say, really think about you, your motivation, and more than just thinking somehow about you, you need to be in contact with people. So you need to meet professionals, and naturally the junior enterprise experience will help you a lot to gain more contacts and to exchange with professional people, so that you start understanding what does it mean working, I would say, 250 days per year. And well, you need to start thinking and to start discussing and make projection to what you are planning to do in the future. That's an important aspect. The second aspect, in terms of, I would say, personal professional advice, is that you need to work a lot, no matter what you are expecting to do. If you want to work in finance, in HR, in marketing, in communication, you have to work a lot in personal, I would say, or interpersonal knowledge or competencies. So basically, a team player is probably one of the most important I would say skill for any type of people in the world. So you need to work with people. You are not supposed to work alone somehow or without any human interaction. And we see with the recent, I would say, events that no interaction or limited interactions for health reasons are not really good for us. So this is really important for you to work a lot on your team spirit. The third thing also, which are more technical this way, because what you remember we say that during the interview we are not looking necessarily for, I would say, people who have a lot of knowledge about technical knowledge, because we know you are young and that you will be trained during your process, your integration process within companies. But there are two things that you have to work on before trying to apply. The first one is I would say being able to speak, I would say, another language. So not only your national language, but also English, German, Spanish, so whatever. But you need also, and that's a really good thing, that you are able to speak and to have interaction with other people in Europe or in the rest of the world. So that's the first thing which is really important. So you need to be fluent, or at least I would say to have a good level in another language than your national language. That's an important aspect. And the second thing is that you need also to have some skills in PowerPoint presentation and Excel grids, because these two tools are quite basic. So I mentioned tool, or the equivalent. I say PowerPoint, but they are also equivalent, sorry. But you can also use the other type or equivalents, but you need to know how to make a presentation, how to use a grid to put figures on it. So to say, so that I don't promote any company, but well, that's something which is really important, that you will have to use it anyway in your life, for your CV, for your personal presentation, for making your account. So you will have to use it anyway. So take the opportunity also to invest sometimes on it. That's really important.
I think it was really interesting, your view related with the way that junior entrepreneurs, the things that they need to develop, right, to enter in the business world. Thank you, Benjamin. And finally, our last question is related with how to be a good alumni in an organization and in a network.
Yeah. So for this question, I will share you what I call a conviction. So this is a very personal conviction. For me, the definition of a good alumni in organization is a person who will, I would say, who stay available, or will try to do as much as he can to stay available and to answer to people, I would say, expectations. So basically, and especially when you are called, for if I take the JEE network example, you are called junior entrepreneur. So you are entrepreneur. So an alumni is not supposed to somehow help you because you're an entrepreneur, but just to support you when you need to. And that's something which is important to me. A good alumni in an organization and on your network is someone who is still away from the day-to-day business, because this is your role as your entrepreneur, as member of the National Confederation or the European Confederation, to rule the organization, to take actions, to make decisions. But sometimes you need to have an external eyes or a small support on a precise project. And that's at this moment of time that a good alumni should, I would say, just give a support, sometimes a small one, but it's enough, and will give some advice or support to help the organization or the network growing. So that's important. Yeah, that's my conviction at least. So away, but not too far away. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, right now, Benjamin, the floor is yours. I only would like to remind the participants that they can start doing some questions and sharing some questions that they would like to ask you at the end. So right now, you can start your tips and tricks related with becoming a consultant.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I will try to go forward. We already discussed some elements, and we'll try to keep the timing also well. I just wanted to share with you some elements, perhaps. As we already discussed, there is no, I would say, cooking recipe that will help you to become a consultant, but at least we can share some ideas or some elements that perhaps you miss during your research or when you are looking for opportunities. The first thing when we are discussing about consulting, this is, I would say, always difficult, because actually this is only one word, but there are a lot of possibilities and there are a lot of options. And the thing is that when someone tells you that I'm consultant, it does not mean anything at all, because you don't know exactly what he's doing. And one thing which is important to you, perhaps more than saying I want to be consultant, is to say, well, in which field I want to be a consultant. Just I won't make a lot of historical course today, but just to present you here in this slide, the 5, I would say, most important. So when I say most important, it's only quantitative. That means that these are the profiles that today, in 2020, it will probably change in the future, but in 2020, when someone told you that he is a consultant, he is likely to work in one of these 5 fields of competency. The first one that you probably know, I imagine largely, is the strategy consultant. Just for your historical background, it all started with strategy, actually. In the US, in the 90s, just after the Second World War, the consulting, I would say, concept as we know today, that's mainly for strategy. So that was people that were, I would say, giving advice to CEO, so the top of the top chief within companies at a period of time, naturally, when companies were not so big and where the strategy started to emerge as a field of study. The 4 other consulting, I would say, in this taxonomy, the 4 other consulting profile that you can see are operations, finance, HR, and IT. They are very important in terms of volumes, because they will help clients on very specific aspects. As you can imagine, the operation consultant will support the company in terms of logistics, supply chain, and production. So your client will be mostly a COO, a Chief Operating Officer. For the financial consultant, and I'm part of it, if I need to belong to a part of a taxonomy, that's my job. So my customers are mostly CFO, so Chief Financial Officer. So they are people who are working directly, naturally, with the CEO. You have the HR consultants, which are also called PNC, for people and change management. So these consultants are helping the organization to grow in terms of human capital. So that's an important part. And then naturally, since now 20, 30, 40 years, you have a lot of IT consultants, because a lot of information technology systems are, I would say, gaining into organizations, and a lot of things that you are using today are related to IT. And naturally, the IT consultants are now number 1 in terms of volume and work and projects. So you have a lot of IT consultants that will help the client to select the application, to implement the application, and to be sure that the systems are working days after days. So basically, you have here the 5 most important typology, important in terms of volume, one more time. And as you can see, the next slide, I put you other examples of consultants that are either emerging or that are already emerging a lot, but are really important. You have the sales and marketing consultants that are working with the chief marketing officer. You have the public relations consultants, especially for big companies to improve their presence and their public view. You have also, and that's more recent, a lot of sustainability consultants. So they are working on carbon footprint and a lot of sustainable practices. So even in a lot of consulting firms now, you have more and more consulting, I would say, related to sustainable and sustainability topics. So that are very important. I think that this trend will continue in the coming years. You have the legal consultants, which are not exactly lawyers, that these people will help you naturally to be sure that you are, I would say, completely performing your activities in a legal manner. So that's also people that are key in the process for companies. And you have the counterpartner, the compliance consultants. So they are here to be sure that you respect the federal and local laws and regulations. So this is more or less what we call internal audit in some countries. So as you can see, the diversity is here. You just have some examples. You naturally have other fields of competencies, but this is just to remind you that being a consultant means also selecting somehow a competency that will be your job in your day-to-day activities. So, as you can see here, to continue our discussion, our presentation, what I presented you is what I call the functional specialty. So what is your specialty? Finance, IT, HR, operation, and a lot of different other possibilities. So that's one of the dimensions that you will have to have in mind when you select a consulting career path. The second important aspect that you will probably have to answer, or the question that you will have to answer, is for which clients are you working for? So basically, in which industry or sector you want to work. Do you want to have customer in consumer goods, in transport, in public sector, in manufacturing, utilities? That's important because they don't have the same problems, they don't have the same objectives. And so depending on their sector or industry, you may have different knowledge or know-how to develop. Just also note that this is something which is interesting, but in a lot of countries, you have some, I would say, industry or sector that I call niche, which are really specific. And most of the time in consulting firm, in large consulting firm, they have developed a special team just to address or to answer to these questions. This is the case for real estate. Real estate issues are really specific, so this is dedicated team. Hotel and tourism, that's also something which is really specific. And you have teams that are very, I would say, dedicated and work only for this profile of people. And you have also the cultural industry. I had the chance in my experience to work for a company which was specialized in the cultural industry. So working for museum, for historical buildings. And that's also a niche, which is very interesting because they are, I would say they have specificities and problems and which are very specific and that you have to come up with. And that's really important and interesting to develop. So you select a function, you select an industry, and then there is another question which is important for you, is actually with whom are you going to work? So basically, do you want to be a freelance or solo consultant? Or do you want to work for a boutique, a medium, or a large consulting firm? So that's part of your decision. One thing also that you have to have in mind is that you have here in these examples that we're discussing only about external consultants, but you have also what we call internal consultants. You have some large firms that have their own consulting firms within the company. So the business unit is hosting within I would say a corporate firm. And that's important also because this is an option that you can take in the future. So one other point which is important, perhaps also to you to understand, is that there are, unfortunately, perhaps, or at least this is a reality, there are what we call market reality. As you may understand, the consulting career path is I would say is a choice which is complicated because you have a lot of you have a lot of people who are motivated to join, I would say, this career path. And actually the number of places are quite small or limited because, as you can imagine, we don't recruit a lot of consultants every year. So that's also the reason why this is sometimes difficult to get an interview. And I get this graph from a UK-based website, which was interesting because there is something which is also important to have in mind, is that depending on the country, and even because here you have just the European market as an example, but even within Europe, you have a lot of differences between countries and regions. So if you have a question, DACH region, it's for the German-speaking countries. So this is the most important consulting region in terms of market. This is in these countries that companies spend the most important part of their budget into consulting. Then follows UK and Ireland. Then the Southern Europe countries, so mainly Portugal, Spain, and Italy. And then you have France, Benelux, Eastern Europe, and Scandinavia. And as you can see, depending on the region, the companies' needs are quite different. Sometimes you have a lot of HR topics. Sometimes you have a lot of financial or operations, I would say, segments, which are important. One thing also you have to have in mind is that in 10 years, if I present you the same chart, it will be completely different. I'm not, I would say, completely, I don't know exactly how the future will be, but I can tell you that the technology part of the on the left side will be much more important than it is today. That's for sure. And as you can see, the strategy is quite small. Huh? Yeah. So if we continue our discussion, there is also a question that I often have is, what is a good consultant? That's really difficult to say because there are no, I would say, good consultants as such, but there are what I call success factors or things that will make you good when you are working in a consulting firm. I think that the first one is naturally motivation. As we already discussed, you need to invest a lot of time, so you need to be motivated. This is a job that takes you or requires you to be very, I would say, implicated or motivated, so that's really important. The second aspect is that you need to have good communication skills, as we already explained. Communication skills internally, so to explain and to be a good team player just right after, but also with your clients, because you know that your customers, I mean, they call you because they have problems, but sometimes they don't want to change, even if they know that they should change because it will solve the problem. So there is a moment where you need also to communicate in the appropriate way with your clients to, I would say, make them change and to understand that this is a benefit for them. Then, as we say, availability and time, you need, when you are working in a intellectual job, you need also time, to think and to get knowledge and experience. Then the fourth aspect is project management. So as you have probably learned at school, your Gantt chart or all these elements that will help you to manage a project. So that's time for you now to use them with a to-do. So your to-do list, your RACI and all these tools, you will have to use them to manage and to follow the project. So that's the fourth one. The fifth, team player, as mentioned, you are not alone and you need also to have other people with you to help you growing and also being more, I would say, able to help your clients. That's something which is very important. Then the sixth one, problem-solving capacities. So this is very important, actually, because we have a lot of problems. We face every day a lot of problems and you need to find solutions. So that's a part of your job. Flexibility, this is something that you mentioned, but as you are an entrepreneur, I'm not worried about this. I think that you are quite flexible or adaptability, that's something that you know. And then finally, something that you will gain with the experience, that's knowledge and experience. So something that you don't really have, but you will have with the time. And so this is important also to invest in gaining experience for your customer. So 8 elements that are important for your future track. Well, rapidly, we are consultants, so naturally I had to put a matrix, which is one of the consulting tools by excellence. Well, one thing which is important with a matrix is that that's cool, but that's really difficult to present. So I will be very brief on this slide because, as you have understood, this is really difficult to present, but at least this is really powerful in terms of explanation. Just to give you the idea, you have different profile of consultants. That's what we already see. The roles are also different. The project, when a customer calls you for a project, it does not necessarily want the same thing that the one before. What I want to say in this perspective is that the role of your within the project will depend on 2 elements, what we call the learning intensity and the co-production intensity. So learning intensity means here's the topic that the client want you to work on. Is it a new topic or an old one? Okay. And the co-production intensity means does the client will help you to find solution, or are you alone and you will I would say, bring your advice. I would say like an advisor with a king somehow, you know. So naturally, the role will be different, and there are people that prefer to be experts. So when you are an expert, means that you know a lot about a topic which is really new, like IT things or intelligence, artificial intelligence, for instance, or you are very specialized in very basic processes, and here you will be a business partner in C. And on the other side, if you make a lot of co-production with your clients, or if you involve your client, your customer, and all the people with you, you are more a change manager guy, and you will help to solve day-to-day problems. So that's also important because it's not the same, I would say, role and not the same logic. And depending on your personality, you will have to take different roles. So be prepared also sometimes to work on very, I would say, high-level topic and sometimes a very basic one. And sometimes you will be alone, and sometimes your client will stay with you all day long, and you will work together. And there are good things and bad things with all these positions. So that's important. Yeah, that was for this matrix. This is the only one of the presentation. And finally, I just also would like to insist on a point. We already discussed that before, but this is something that for me is important to share with you, especially because when I was an entrepreneur, I was not really aware of this situation. But there are actually 4 aspects of your working environment which will be very critical to you if you want to love your job. Basically, when you will select, so as you remember, you will select a company, you will select a specialty, you will select a client and your customers. But there are 4 elements which are very important and that will make you comfortable with your job. Is first, on the left, the culture. Is the consulting firm, has the consulting firm a good culture? Do you share the value? Do you share the goals? Do you think that the behavior that they have, that your colleagues have, is acceptable and is a good one? So that's really important. You need to feel comfortable with the culture of your company. Then you have all the routines, so the process, the way of doing things. This is generally what you experience with your JEE experience, with the red tapes. So all the administrative tasks, all the things that you have to write and all the papers. So that's part of it. So sometimes this is easy in some companies. Sometimes you have a lot of process, a lot of things to do. So it could be a little bit difficult to work in this situation. The third point is people. Naturally, as I already insist a lot on that, so I won't continue, but people are definitely very important. And then the last one actually will be architecture. This is the way the company takes decision and decide to reward or to incentive people. So naturally, when you are working and that your somehow your partner or your the people with you are able to reward you or to recognize that you do a great job, that's easier to continue than in a situation when when you don't have any incentive and that you when you are just the impression to be a slave. So that's also an important part to have in mind. So please, when you select a company or when you select a job, do have these 4 elements in mind, because if the 4 are aligned with your expectations and with your values, that will be much more easier for you to continue and to enjoy and to love your job and to have pleasure.
Thank you, Benjamin. It was really, really interesting. Your tips and tricks part. Right now, I would like to invite the participants to share some doubts that might have that happened during the interview. We have a little bit a little delay, so let's wait a little bit, okay?
Yes. Sorry, I talk too much.
No, don't worry. Okay, we already have one message from Ricardo. He told you thank you for the great advices. It was helpful for the people that aim to follow a consultancy career. So it's a really nice feedback. Let's
Thank you
wait
very much.
a little bit more just to know if we have more feedback. Okay, so thank you so much, Benjamin. We are grateful you still following us upon following us during this journey, and you are really helpful. Wish you all the best in your professional adventure and for your personal life too. We are looking forward to hearing from you soon again in the Alumni Network. To the guys who are watching us, we hope you enjoyed this time together and took some great outputs out of this video. You will also be able to find the written version in the of the significant parts in the following days on our social media. Do not hesitate to contact us if you need anything regarding with alumni to alumni management at juniorenterprises.eu. Finally, you can register to our seasonal alumni newsletter and join our professional community on LinkedIn. The links are going to be shared in the description. See you in another JEE success story. So, bye, guys.
Bye bye. Thank you very much.